How much is your hourly pay? Do you get paid overtime? Do you remember the Fight for 15 movement? In the early 20th century, people worked 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, and kids had to be sent to work as well for the family to just get by. Those conditions changed with the passage of Fair Labor Standards Act in 1938, which regulated minimum pay, overtime pay, and child labor. This act is closely related to everyone except if you're an independent contractor like an Uber driver. It is important not only to learn the FLSA as an HR major, but also as an employee to protect your rights. The Fair Labor Standards Act, FLSA, was passed in 1938 to address the labor exploitation during the Great Depression and the transition from agriculture to industrialization. It is one of the most important compensation laws, covering 3 broad issues: minimum wage, overtime pay, and child labor. The U.S. Department of Labor enforces FLSA, and you can find all the details about FLSA on the Department of Labor website. Minimum wage. The purpose of setting a minimum wage is to ensure a minimally acceptable standard of living for workers. When FLSA was passed in 1938, the minimum wage was 25 cents per hour. Today, the federal minimum hourly wage is $7.25, which was last adjusted in 2009, and the number is debatable as a minimum acceptable living standard now. However, most states have their own minimum wage requirements. Most are higher than the federal level, some are same as federal level, and 2 are even below the federal level. In Minnesota's tiered system, as of 2024, the minimum pay for the large employer is $10.85, and for a small employer is $8.85 per hour. The District of Columbia had the highest hourly rate at $17.50 per hour, which was recently increased in July 2024. With Georgia and Wyoming's hourly minimum pay are tied at $5.15. What's the general rule if the states and federal have different requirements? In general, the higher minimum wage between federal and state laws is the one that applies. If the federal minimum wage is higher than the state's, employers must pay the federal rate. But if the state's minimum wage is higher, the state rates apply. There are exceptions as well. For instance, youth under 20 years old may be paid at a minimum wage of not less than $4.25 per hour during the first 90 consecutive calendar days of employment. Check out the fact sheets link below for more details. Tipped employees must be paid no less than $2.13 an hour in direct wage if the plus tip equals or exceeds the minimum wage. Otherwise, employers must make up the difference. The FLSA requires employers to pay workers at least 1.5 times the regular hourly rate for all hours beyond 40 within 7 consecutive days. So if your regular rate is $10 and you work more than 40 hours in a week, each additional hours you need to be paid at least $15. But what are considered as working hours? If you work at a fast food restaurant, does cleaning up the store after it's closed count towards the 40 hours? FLSA was expanded by Portal to Portal Act, where it defines the compensable working hours. For instance, if the on-call time, mandatory security screen time are counted as working hours. Check out the next video for more information on the Act. Note that overtime provision doesn't apply to all jobs. For instance, executives, creative professionals, computer workers, and outside sales employees. As a salaried faculty member like me, I'm not entitled for overtime pay, even I worked over 60 hours per week when I first started. To classify an employee as exempt, the salary is at least $11.28 per week in January 2025. The salary has to be consistent regardless of the hours, and you have to have certain responsibilities like managing others or performing advanced tasks. Child labor. Fair Labor Standards Act also protects young workers from exploitation and hazardous working conditions. For instance, employment is prohibited for children under the age of 14. If you're 14 or 15, you can work only in non-hazardous jobs and outside of school hours. You can't work more than 3 hours on school nights or 18 hours per week during school time. You can work up to 40 hours per week during the breaks. If you're 16 or 17, there are no hourly restrictions, but you can't work in hazardous conditions. However, there are exemptions again. What if we need a baby actor in a movie? We work for the family business, or we need a babysitter for the neighbor. These exemptions exist to accommodate specific situations that enable young individuals to earn money while engaging in safe and flexible work. Overall, the FLSA ensures that employees receive fair pay and living wages, while also safeguarding young workers in the workforce. Keep in mind that specific situations may lead to different interpretations of these requirements as the law continues to evolve and improve. Thanks for watching.